Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the St. Charles County Council meeting. I'd like to introduce Mike Prose from Church on the Rock, who will do our invocation, followed by Mike Klinghammer with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Thank you. Tonight I represent Pastors David and Kim Blunt, Church on the Rock in St. Peter's. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. God, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this meeting. God, we ask right now that you give everyone involved wisdom in the decision-making processes for this county and the cities that reside within it. God, right now we thank you that every decision that is made comes with the heart to make us stronger in this community, God, and the community surrounding. Oh, we thank you that this meeting is conducted with productivity and efficiency in every way, shape, and form. We thank you for these moments together, and it's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Donna, please call the roll.
Here. Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
Okay, next on our agenda is public comments. This allows speakers to approach the council on any topic. However, once a topic is opened for discussion, we will only allow 3 speakers for and 3 speakers opposed. Each speaker has a limit of 3 minutes, and we ask you please to limit yourself to that, and also to fill out a speaker's card either before or after you speak. Okay, public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is David Barget. I'm with the St. Charles County Community Assistance Board, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of Bill number 3968, which will be introduced by Councilman Cronin later on. Our chairman, Denise McCowan, couldn't be here tonight, so I'm representing the 9-member board on behalf of Denise. But I just wanted to briefly say that for all 9 members of the board, we fully support Bill 3968, which will be called Project CARE. It's a dollar help type of program that we're all familiar with Ameren or Quiver River, types like that. It's 100% voluntary. There's absolutely no tax increase, and I think it's a win-win situation for everybody. And I believe that the Community Assistance Board will be asked to allocate the funding through our indigent fund when additional revenues are received. And as you know, the indigent fund has really taken a hit in recent years due to the downturn in the economy. So with that, I just wanted to inform the council, Mr. Chairman, and the county executive that we on the Community Assistance Board fully support this bill, and we'll do everything we can in our power to make this program a very successful one. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other speakers on bill number 3968? Okay, seeing none. Other public comments? Mr. Enoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, my voice, hopefully everybody can hear me. I was at the horse races over in Illinois on Saturday and yelled a little bit too loud. But my horse won. Thank you for hearing my comments. A.C. Dienoff, county resident. I was empowered by the passage of the County Council of Resolution 13/03 at your April 29th meeting, and it dealt with asking the legislature not to pass Senate Bill 241 and House Bill 345. I took that as a very serious treading on local government and treading on local rights and the transparency and process of having neighbors testify before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the County Council in reference to the erection of cell phone towers within their neighborhoods. So I took that very seriously, and I talked to the county executive after the meeting, and I felt that it was to take it upon myself that I should go to the Senate committee, which heard the final passage of House Bill 345, which was the following day, which was on the 30th of April. So I went to Jefferson City at 1:30, and I waited for my time to testify. The proponents, there were 10 high-paid lobbyists from, AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, U.S. Cellular, some other companies that testified and had some compelling reasons, but they never told what the crux is and why they wanted to trample the rights of planning and zoning issues at the local level and why they wanted to take away the rights of people to be involved in our political and decision-making process. And so it came to the opposition, and I was recognized by the chair, Brad Lager of the Senate, and I made about a 15-minute presentation, and I presented each senator with the copy of the passed resolution that was signed by Mr. Hollander. And a lot of senators agreed with what I said, except for one from Lee Summit. He disagreed because he said it had to do with wireless antennas on telephone poles in the city of Independence. And so he was supporting the bill because of that alone. But obviously, Senator from Lee Summit didn't read the bill in its entirety. After talking to Senator Lager's chief of staff this morning, this bill passed the Senate for final passage, passed the House for final passage, and was laid on the governor's desk either Friday late afternoon or this morning. And so I would encourage our county executive, our county lobbyist, and each county council member and staff to contact Governor Jay Nixon at 573-751-3222 and urge him to vote no and veto this bill because it just is not common sense. It's taking away our local control, and I'm a Republican. The legislature, the Senate and House are Republican controlled, and they cry every time the federal government puts controls on state government and wants to have you do things without a funded mandate. And I just think that they're doing the same to local government. And after I spoke, the Missouri Association of Counties and the Missouri Municipal League backed up my statements and what I believed in. So I think that we need to make a concerted effort, and we need to get our friends across the state in government positions to call the governor and email the governor and send letters and to veto, because this is setting a very bad precedent. I think we need to have local control of our zoning. I think that people need to participate in the planning and zoning efforts and the county council efforts. And as Wayne Anthony testified, you might as well not do the process because you can't get it done in 90 days. So let's try to get the governor to veto this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments on the resolution that was passed? Okay. Any other subjects? Anybody else have any public comments on any other topics? Sir. Yeah, it'll come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is John Kajar, and I'm representing Two Branch Marina and JOK LLC in favor of Bill 3964. As some of you may remember, in November, an application of JOK LLC was voted down by one vote short of a supermajority for 14 lots on JOK's property only. At that time, the deciding vote against the application was Nancy Matheny, and at that time she had suggested the application go back to Planning and Zoning for approval. Since then, we've gone back to Planning and Zoning and we've gotten their approval. I'd like to go over a few things that we've done since November, which led up to that approval. I met with Wayne Anthony, the Director of Planning and Zoning, and the Neighborhood Preservation on site. At the time, we had some violations on Two Branch Marina's property. Came up with a plan on how to get rid of those violations. First thing we did was take out demolition permits, remove structures on Two Branch Marina's property. removed old dry storage buildings, debris, organized the property, and in February we went to court and got rid of all the violations. We also planted trees along our neighbor Larry LaCrone's property line, and since then he's written the county a letter stating that he's no longer in opposition to this application. I started a petition. I talked to my local property owners that touched the property. They signed a petition saying that they were in agreement with what I'm trying to do. I also met with a guy named Art Bond. He's the director of Darting Realty, and I asked him to try and resolve the opposition prior to my application. That didn't work out so well, but he did try and go to the members of the Duck Club, and he did talk to him for me, and I appreciated that. As you know, since the approval and this meeting, Darting Realty has written a letter through Hazelwood Weber asking the council to dismiss the planning and zoning's decision. I feel this is wrong and insults us all. They're trying to make 3 points in the letter that I can come up with. One, flood debris would come onto their property. The only way that could happen is if we had a flood higher than 1993. There's railroad tracks. This is a picture of the entrance to their property. And over here, there's a set of railroad tracks which divide Two Branches property from their property. And the only way anything could come onto their property during a flood would be if the water level went above 439, which is the elevation of the railroad tracks. In 1993, the highest level was 439.6, and that was upriver at Winfield Lock and Dam. And then, the water would have to be higher than the railroad tracks for anything to float over it. And it would have to float upriver. So a couple things would have to happen there for that point to be valid. Secondly, they're talking about traffic and noise in their property. Their property is on a highway. It's Highway C. It's not a road, an avenue, street, or boulevard. It's a highway. And the traffic that Two Branch and any of this project would generate is after the intersection of Highway B and C. They're not giving you guys any kind of traffic patterns or cars per day or any kind of information to support that point. Thirdly, they're saying my application doesn't meet the 12-month requirement. There are a couple differences. Number 6 of their letter states that only JOKs applied on March 13th, 2013. It's a co-applicant with Two Branch Marina. This is different than the application that got voted down in November. The quantity and scope of the application are proportionately different.
Can I ask you to wrap it up pretty quickly here? You're over 3 minutes, but that's fine.
I couldn't get it under 4.
I understand.
Wayne Anthony allowed for it to be submitted, and this issue came up in the planning and zoning hearing last month, and at that time the legal team of St. Charles County agreed the application was different enough to be heard. The Planning and Zoning Commission agreed the application should be heard. The Planning and Zoning Commission decided to approve it. They approved the application with a setback which protects the field behind Larry LaCrone's house from having campsites in it. I want to comply with this bill, and my hope is that the council will hear and pass this bill. I'll be available for questioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak on bill number 3964, the conditional use permit for campgrounds to JOK? Mr. Dougherty.
Gentlemen, Jerry Dougherty, 1320 Church Street, Portage de Sioux. I would like to ask for your support of Bill 3964. When I was on the council, I spent quite a bit of time on this subject and issues, and I was very much opposed of it at the beginning because the state of the property and everything was not very well. After endless meetings and a great amount of the expense on the owner's part, they have cleaned that up. I think there may be one engineering issue, but I think that's been resolved as far as the rack storage and everything else. I testified at the P&Z meeting on their behalf and everything, and all the restrictions, setbacks and everything have been met, and they're all in this bill. When I was on the council, we went through, myself, Wayne Anthony, Steve Lauer, Ellie, we worked on this thing very diligently and pull all the restrictions right out of our code books and everything else. So I don't think nothing is beyond demand here. I I'd be available for questions when this comes up for discussion. One other bill that I would like to ask for you guys' support is 3966, which is the real estate deal between Lincoln and St. Charles County. I worked pretty hard on that. We're trying to get a park there to where we'll have a river access to the Cuerva River for emergency response, recreation through the parks or whatever. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on Bill number 3964? Mr. Weber.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Drew Weber with Hazelwood & Weber, and I represent Darden Realty Company. Darden Realty Company is a neighboring landowner to Mr. Kajar's property and opposes this application. And there's really one main issue, and I think you all received my motion to dismiss, and that is that this application is not properly before the council. And the Planning and Zoning Commission actually recognized that, but basically said, well, this is a legal issue. We're going to postpone that. That's not our grounds for our decision to make. So the application is not properly before the council because it was the original application for a campground was filed on September 4th, 2012. And then on November 26th, as you know, the county council denied that application. And the UDO states that once an application for a conditional use permit is denied, it can't be resubmitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a period of 12 months unless the use has changed. And so the operative term here is use. Use is not defined in the UDO, but under Missouri law, there's clear differences between uses and non-uses in zoning matters. And non-uses are things like area restrictions, setbacks, building issues, and density. Well, here we have a density issue. This application calls for 24 campsites. The previous one called for 14. But the use has not changed. The use is still a campground. And there's nothing in the UDO to support this argument that, well, it's a different use because there's 24 instead of 14 campsites. I mean, that's just not part of the law or part of the UDO. So accordingly, this application is just not properly before the council and can't be resubmitted until after November 26, 2013. And secondly, Mr. Kajar talks about these findings of fact in the prior letter I sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those findings about the traffic issues and safety, those were the findings of the county council at the prior hearing. So those aren't my statements, they're statements repeated from the county council. And nothing has changed regarding those issues, the traffic issues, mainly traffic and safety relating to traffic in times of a flood specifically. In fact, in the findings of fact, they say, we find that 14 RVs escaping in a time of flood basically is a safety hazard. Well, now we have 24, and despite all the improvements to their property, that's still an issue, and that hasn't changed. So in the event that the motion to dismiss is not granted, the application should still be denied because the findings of fact by the county council are still the same. Nothing relevant to those has changed. So my time is up. I will also be here for further questions.
Thank you. Any other public speakers on 3964? Okay. Any other public comments on any other issue? Sure.
I'm Mark Ditch, 6165 Highway 94 South Augusta, and I'm here to represent the Willenbrink Farm and Stajinsky Trust on bill number 3962. And I'll be here for any questions that you might have in your consideration, and we appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in public comments? Any other topics? Seeing none, public comments are closed. And next on our agenda is an oral report from the county executive.
I have no report this evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next up is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept.
I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as it is written here. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda has passed. Okay. Next is bills for introduction. First off would be bill number 3962.
Bill number 3962, requested by Steve Lauer, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance of the County of St. Charles, Missouri, approving the preliminary plat of Willenbrink Farm, Plat 2.
Okay. Any questions or comments on bill number 3962?
Yeah.
Sure.
No issues. I mean, it's just standard procedure, pretty agriculture out there, so I have no problem with it.
Seems like.
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Next bill for introduction is bill number 3963.
Bill number 3963, requested by Steve Lauer, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to R1A Single Family Residential District as per application 17983.
Questions or comments on bill 3963?
Again, this is an area that's pretty built up, and this is pretty typical zoning change.
I see that P&Z voted 10-0 to approve the matter. Okay, any other questions or comments? Next bill for introduction is bill number 3964.
Bill number 3964, requested by Steve Lauer, sponsored by Michael Klinghammer, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 18148 for a campground to JOK's LLC and Two Branch Marina.
Okay, I'm sure we're going to have some questions for bill 3964.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
plan on meeting both with Mr. Weber and the property owners at Two Branch, and I'll have a more detailed report next meeting.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Cronin.
Having attended the planning and zoning meetings on this subject, I would like to request that the county council review the procedures at those meetings to make sure that the procedures that Mr. Weber is referring to were handled correctly, and I'd like to possibly have an opinion on that before I have to vote on it in 2 weeks. That's possible.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Question for Mr. Anthony? Okay. Seeing none, next bill for introduction is Bill 3965.
Bill number 3965, requested by Craig Tekowski, sponsored by Michael Klinghammer, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute the state block grant agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for receipt of funds in the amount of $281,331 with an initial county match not to exceed $23,580 for projects at Smart Field.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill 3965? Okay, seeing none, we move on to Bill 3966.
Bill number 3966, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Terry Hollander and Joe Cronin, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental real estate transfer agreement between Lincoln County, Missouri and St. Charles County, Missouri for the transfer to St. Charles County of certain tracts of land being part of lots 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 of Kreider Fishing Lots, Plat Book 5, page 17, being part of lot number 16 of McKay's partition of U.S. Survey 3035, Township 48 North, Range 2 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, St. Charles County, Missouri, parcel.
Questions and comments on Bill number 3966? Mr. Cronin.
I went out and visited this site over the weekend and tried to get an idea the best I could, the part of it that wasn't underwater, and it's got some potential down the road for a boat ramp and a parking lot to access the Quiver River, and if the Corps of Engineers cleans up the entrance to the Quiver, even in Mississippi. And while my name is on this bill, there's a gentleman in the audience that did a lot of work on this, and myself and him met with Lincoln County Commissioners quite a bit, and he struck up the conversation, and the people in my district appreciate your work on this, Jerry. It'll be a nice addition to the county down the road. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on 3966? Okay. Move on to introduction of Bill number 3967.
Bill number 3967, requested by Hope Woodson, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental agreement between St. Charles County and the Missouri Department of Corrections for for vaccination and testing of the department's employees and volunteers.
Questions or comments on Bill 3967? Seeing none, we move to Bill number 3968.
Bill number 3968, requested by Joe Cronin, sponsored by Joe Cronin, an ordinance amending Section 120.480 Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, relating to the Community Assistance Board to facilitate voluntary donations to the county's Community Assistance Fund by authorizing a program that may be called Project CARE, Community Assistance Relief Effort, and under which residents may make such donations along with payments of their property taxes.
Okay, questions and comments on Bill 3968? Mr. Cronin.
I looked before, I've been working on this for about a year, and I looked at some of the other programs in the area, like Quiver Rivers programs and Ameren's. And if we can get some moderate success out of this, based on the numbers from Quiver River, it might provide as much as $100,000 a year in money to the CAB board. Attending some of the CAB board meetings and seeing what those folks do with the budget they have was pretty impressive to me. There are a lot of good people in this county, and this just gives them an opportunity to help those neighbors of theirs that need help. This is a bill in progress. I've talked to Jennifer and Mr. Dorman and Joanna a bit about it. There's some tweaking that we have to do here or there in the next couple of weeks to make sure everybody's okay with it. I'm meeting with the CAB board tomorrow night to try to get some input from them about how to market this and what type of statement they would like to see on the bills. And then Michelle McBride's got a fair amount of work to make this happen too. But prior to introducing this, I talked to Michelle. I also talked to Bob's, and Bob had some suggestions for it, but I didn't want to bother Bob while he's recuperating. So I think hopefully by the time that we get to the meeting in 2 weeks, all the answers will be there, and we can get this to everybody's satisfaction, the CAB board, the administration, and our legal folks as well.
Any other questions or comments? I'd like to add, I think that's one of those kind of things that we can do to help those in need without obviously raising taxes or pulling funds from other sources. And it seems to have been successful with, Ameren UE and a couple of other agencies. So I think it's certainly a good idea if we can work out the details. Okay. Next is Bill 3969.
Bill number 3969, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement between St. Charles County and the School District of Washington, Missouri for transfer to St. Charles County of historical, statutory, or informational records of the former Augusta School District.
Questions or comments, please? Okay, I didn't know there was a former Augusta School District, but I guess there was. Okay. Next bill for introduction is Bill 3970.
Bill number 3970, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance amending Ordinance 12-096 of St. Charles County, Missouri, and Chapter 115 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, relating to the basic pay plan for a position within the Department of Community Health and the Environment.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill 3969?
3970.
Okay. Next, we move on for introduction, Bill 3970.
And we just did 3970.
Oh, I'm behind. Bill number 3971.
Bill number 3971, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service agreement between the County of St. Charles, Missouri, and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Missouri in conjunction with the Missouri Highway Patrol as fiscal agent and John Montavani as an independent contractor.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill 3971? Okay, seeing none, that concludes our bills for introduction. Do we have any miscellaneous announcements? I do want to mention to our audience and to others that the next council meeting will be on a Tuesday, May the 28th, due to Memorial Day. So we will be meeting on a Tuesday rather than a Monday on our next meeting. Motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, we got some people on the injured reserve list and the disabled list. You want to give an update on? The Director of Administration might want to give an update on Bob and
Yes.
and also on Don.
We now have concluded that it's very dangerous to enter those double doors across the hall.
Yeah, I can
because
see
it seems as though if you do, something's going to happen. So Bob successfully came through his bypass surgery, and as you know, we have banned him from any real work. And he sees his doctor, I believe it's on the 21st, and is hopeful that he'll be released to come back at least part-time. So he came for a social visit, and we kept it to that, and he looks very good. And he says he's starting to feel good. But obviously, after 5 bypasses, he tires easily, so.
And you could probably say hi to him now, because we know he watches the council meetings.
Yes, he is watching the council meetings.
Yes, we certainly
Last week, Don Bamer, who's not with us tonight, had some visual issue, and when he checked it out, he'd actually torn his retina. So he had, if not emergency surgery, some very quick surgery the next day, and he's been banned from the office by his doctor until next Monday. So be careful. Don't enter those doors, is my advice.
We'll stay on this side of the hall here, so.
Good luck coming to work this week.
Yes. Any other announcements, comments? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned.